Hello, everybody. This is Tim Riley. I'm the current CEO at Zettaset, and this is Maxim Yankowski, my VP of Engineering. And we're going to talk to you today about breach, theft, and disaster, about protecting the digital transformation from itself. Before we jump in, I just wanted to give you a little history on ourselves. I've been fortunate enough to be around the technology industry for most of my career, whether that be telecom, carrier, hardware, software, security, and throughout, there's always been a need for encryption in every single level at every single stage. The question is always who adopts it, when they adopt it, and how concerned are anyone, for that matter, with it. And this is Maxim.
Hi, I'm Maxim Yankowski, the Vice President of Engineering at Zettaset. I've been working in Silicon Valley in various industries related to software for about the past 20 years. For the past 15 years, I've been working in various companies on software encryption and key management products, and have been with Zettaset for the past 8 years.
I rely on him for everything. So just before we get in, let's just talk about our relationship with HPE. They've been a great partner of ours. We've been with them for a few years now and have been certified tested across most of the different product lines within HPE, starting with the gateway, moving on to the client, and as we move more into the software-defined data center, which we are software-defined encryption, which is a perfect marriage. We've been with SimpliVity and the Synergy OneView folks. They've been great, and last year we even were a Technology Momentum Partner of the Year, outstanding partnership, and looking forward to taking it to the next level as we get more into encryption, whether it be in legacy or in the new digital transformation technologies like containers and Kubernetes. So where are we now? When we look at the amount of data that we're at in this world, 90% has been created in the last 2 years. It's really insane to think how quickly that we've generated, and we've gone from 13 zettabytes up to forecasted 175 zettabytes by 2025. And there's going to be some level of that's sensitive. Not everything will be sensitive, but there's a preponderance of sensitive data, and we all see how this is becoming more prevalent in the headlines, where at the end of it, you should just encrypt. It's the last line of defense. There's other pieces to the stool of security, whether it be access management, audit and monitoring and logging, but encryption is just as important. And with this new world order and this data that exponentially will be created and all the bad actors that see it as a prize, encryption is essential to any security strategy. Now, I like to show the scary slide, and this pretty much sums it up. 4 million in breach. This is just recent. And you can tell, regardless of what it might be, business interruption, reputation, loss of customers, or just the effects internally of having to get the new infrastructure in place and any upgrades that are needed. It's a costly event, and no one is immune to it if you look at the various companies that are down there, regardless of vertical, and the federal government is just as at risk. So it's a target for any nation, rogue states, whatever you might have, criminal syndicates. Across the board, no one is safe from a potential breach and theft of their data. And I think now more than ever, the topic of encryption has been more in the news. I know it's mostly, it comes a lot from the phones or the laptops or the desktops, but where the data finally resides is in the enterprise and at a data center. A data center can be virtual or physical, and wherever it goes, Zettaset wants to be your encryption to protect it. Now, this one is supposed to be a complex slide. I want you to have your eyes roll in the back of your head for a reason. The left side is our legacy world that we live in, and we've lived in for the last 30 years with brick and mortar data centers as they are in those fortified various locations around the globe. Well, that world has suddenly changed with all that data created. We now have the opportunity to extract and do analytics and find new value for customers and cost efficiencies for enterprises in the form of what we call the digital transformation. So what are some of these tools in these initiatives? Well, the ones that we seem to see the most are DevOps and cloud, as we all have heard those in so many forms in the last 5-10 years. Well, between the legacy and the new, and this new digital transformation giving us these new technologies, no matter what, the data moves. The data needs to be encrypted. The data needs to be protected wherever it goes. It could be in a physical bare metal, it could be on a server, it could be virtual, it could be in a container, it could be in the Kubernetes environment, it could be out on the edge, it could be up in the cloud. You can imagine all the different areas that now are exposed and new cyber attack vectors that have come out of this. And encryption is one of your best lines of defense to get around that. Now, I want to leave it at this because I think Maxim has a great ability to really show why you need encryption and where it stands as how important it is as a tool in security. Just understand this slide really briefly. All of these people that were interviewed for this and surveyed see the same problem. Digital transformation, the more you embrace it, the greater the potential for breach and theft. And as you can see, the harder you go at it, the more aggressive, the more the temptation out there by bad actors. I think it's important that everyone sees it, but do they do anything about it? And that's truly the question and the risk we have right now out there. Doesn't matter the customer, the vertical, everyone's at risk. And the more you want to embrace these new technologies, the more issues and potential for breach and theft you may encounter. Want to take it away, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim. Yes, so Tim kind of laid down the foundation for the fact that nobody's surprised when we tell you you have to protect your data, because data is the most valuable commodity of the enterprise. That's where enterprises derive the intelligence from, and that's what they have to protect. So as an enterprise, how do you go about protecting your data? You start by encrypting the data at the source. And it's important to remember that no single product will give you a complete security. So security solution is really a combination of multiple products and technologies. And it's important to understand that encryption is at the core of that protection. So encrypt the data as soon as the data originates. The moment the data hits the storage, it needs to be stored in an encrypted form. Any sensitive information that hits the storage needs to be encrypted at rest, and it needs to be encrypted throughout all the processes. In addition, all the access, all manipulation, all operations on the data by any applications or any software or any person needs to be logged, and these logs need to be monitored carefully. So, and why is that so important? Because in the recent surveys, enterprises are putting more and more data in different environments, and over 90% of those enterprises, they said that they're planning to derive intelligence from sensitive data. So they're going to create larger environments, more performant environments, and they're going to put more and more sensitive data in those environments. Yet only about a third of the enterprises made it a point to actually protect and encrypt the data. And if you look through different points and different data acquisition pipelines, containers are certainly prevalent from two perspectives. The adoption of containers grows pretty rapidly over the past several years, and containers have been identified not only as the largest security and breach vectors, but also as the largest processing infrastructures of the future. So with the understanding that enterprise must protect their data, and with the understanding that so much sensitive data will end up in a digital enterprise, why is that the encryption has not been adopted so readily? And it seems like a no-brainer that the enterprises should just encrypt. So why aren't they? And why haven't they been encrypting their data for quite some time? Well, because historically encryption has been perceived as a technology that's quite difficult to adopt for a number of reasons, and some of them are still valid. Encryption has been known to introduce substantial performance overhead into any processing that's added on top of encryption. One of the important aspects of the encryption is the key management, and key management has been thought of as difficult to implement, and especially in enterprise environments. System scalability came in the forefront, especially when the digital transformation and putting data in the cloud became priority for the enterprises. And we at Zettaset, we literally have taken the list of those security hurdles, or those hurdles that prevent adoption of encryption, and we set out to essentially remove those hurdles. As a tagline, we are making security and encryption so simple to implement that there's really no There's really no excuse for not deploying it.
It's his tagline. That's why I struggled right there. Got to give you a hard time. Go ahead.
So at Zettaset, what do we bring to the table as part of our software-defined encryption? As I mentioned, software-defined means it's only software. It does not require any proprietary hardware, any appliances, and it comes in a nice self-contained package that includes everything that you need. Thereby, we're making total cost of ownership of the software and encryption products very, very low. It's important to remember that, we said earlier that encryption has been thought of not being easy to use. So we're making it easy to use. We're making it essentially point and encrypt. You specify which environment you want to encrypt. You specify which data or all data that you want to encrypt, and we take care of the rest. Performance is at the paramount of all of our solutions. Essentially, when you deploy our solution, no encryption technology comes with no performance penalty. So for us, performance penalty is kept at the absolute minimum at about 3 to 5% performance degradation. Being software only, we have the benefit of scaling pretty much infinitely in a variety of environments between on-prem, cloud, and hybrid environments. We scale pretty much infinitely. And our software solution provides very simple gateways and very simple technologies for implementing regulatory compliance.
So before we jump into the next slide, let's talk about a couple different use cases. Obviously, encryption is seen in some of the heavier, like we said there, regulated industries, whether that be federal, public sector, healthcare, or financial. And to give a healthcare example, we had one firm in the Midwest whereby they needed encryption in a full encryption solution and quickly. We were able to use our software and encrypt data in place where you did not have to do a backup and restore, and they leveraged our full product suite, and they were up and running in 2 days. And the level of increased security got them from 0 to completely compliant with HIPAA and high tech. Now, we do understand that you may not have to have a mandated HIPAA encryption, but it is seen as the best practice by every security professional out there. With regards to financial, we've seen that the need for real-time encryption is, the demand is there, and it's only going to get tougher for people to sit there and go, I need my real-time analysis, but I need to have it protected. And that marriage is always tough. So if you're reluctant to encrypt because you're going to lose efficiencies and gain in any kind of value, then you're going to be hesitant. But like Maxim said, 3 to 7% is nominal enough where we're seeing the adoption. So when you have the ability, whether it's in healthcare or financial, to be able to do this and install with simplicity, and then on top of that, not impact performance, you're going to see some great dividends from that. In the Fed space, we're seeing them with more adoption of the current technologies, whether that be Kubernetes or containers. And our product has a differentiated, distributed ability to encrypt on a larger scale, and we can talk about that, or you can visit the virtual booth at a later date. So let's talk about the ecosystem that we live in right here. And I think this does a great job of making the world understand where data resides. And if you look in the middle, there's your core. There's your traditional data center at the bottom with the various pieces of iron and technology and the software-defined data center that HPE brings to the table. You can see those products which we have integration, and like we said in the beginning, we're certified with. And as we move up that stack into the virtual, you can see that regardless of VMs or the Kubernetes that runs on top of it, or some of the other Kubernetes distributions like Red Hat and VMware, and ultimately the containers that they manage, we have encryption at all those levels. So regardless of what you have in your data center, we have the ability to encrypt. Now take that out to the edge with the edge line gateways, and we have the ability to encrypt there, or maybe you want to run Kubernetes or containers on the edge as well. We have you protected there. And shifting all the way up to the cloud, you have the ability to encrypt, whether it be a private, a public, or even a multi-cloud, whereby most folks don't single source. They want to rely on an AWS for one function and Azure for another. So then you suddenly create multi-tenancy, which there in of itself is another breach vector that you'll see issues with if you don't have the ability to limit what a breach size would be by letting someone in and they get to see everything. By limiting that with a multi-tenancy encryption solution, they're limited in what kind of breach that might happen. And as HPE is a great partner with Arrow, as are we, terrific distributor. I think most of your folks out there have some kind of relationship with channel partners like them, but they're just a great company to work with as well. Going into the products, I'll let Maxim talk to them, but I want to make one thing clear. Look at the left side, it says legacy. We have those products, and we see them being used across the various verticals, whether it's healthcare, financial, pharma. But the new developing ones, through this digital transformation, where there is this new attack vector that comes with distributed, we have the products for there, whether it be the container Kubernetes and OpenShift, and below is some of the secret sauce. Now, I will quiet down and let you give us a little bit more detail on that. Okay.
Thank you. Yes. So as Tim mentioned, some of the products we tend to think of them as legacy products, mostly because they address encryption and security needs in what we call the legacy environments. Think of it as traditional data center environments or even more modern virtualized environments, but still the environments that are not necessarily part of the more modern DevOps and DevSecOps digital transformation. Those products, they can encrypt partitions on disks, they can encrypt archive files, they can encrypt objects in the cloud, be that S3 objects or objects in other clouds. The newer DevOps projects, and we actually went through the digital transformations ourselves. We've taken our products and we transformed them into containerized versions of our software that runs natively, whether it's been in Docker containers or managed under Kubernetes, and as well as deployed automatically via native Kubernetes operators under DIY Kubernetes or OpenShift. All of those products and all of those technologies, they share what we call a common core or script core components. And as we talked, encryption heavily relies on the key management. Key management is a simple aspect of encryption, but it's an important one because that's how you provide granularity, that's how you provide performance, and most importantly, this is how we are able to accomplish transparency. For us, transparency really refers to an extremely important aspect of any solution, which is when you deploy an encrypted system, you don't have to, as a user, you don't have to change your existing processes of how you work with the system or how you work with the data. That is enabled by our key administration and policy management components. We talked earlier about point and encrypt. So you just tell which environment, which data you would like to encrypt. We deploy encryption. You pay little to no performance penalty. And most importantly, you don't change your processes. You work with an encrypted environment in the exact same way, using the exact set of tools and exact same set of commands as you work with an unencrypted environment. And the core components and core technologies enable that. In addition, they enable us to quickly adapt and quickly develop to other environments as well. So with our existing products, we cover a very broad range of technologies, starting with the legacy data center and virtualized world, and all the way into the more modern DevOps and DevSecOps, Kubernetes, OpenShift, and other containerized platforms.
So what do we take away from all this? I think the important part right now is that everyone understands, but that they want to take that next step of cybersecurity and digital transformation have to be attached. You can't do one without the other. And if you do, you're bound to repeat the sins of the past. With this new world order, when it comes to the current situation with the pandemic, let's, again, take healthcare as an example, and I'll let Maxim talk to it a little deeper. But we had one university hospital we talked to that said they saw a 700 times increase in telehealth. And imagine the amount of data that is PHI that needs to be encrypted and where it goes. Add to that the storage vessels that it's going back to and the risk for exposure based on where that is. And why don't you give one little more detail on that?
Yeah, and speaking of that particular university, not only the amount of sessions that they've seen for the telemedicine increased dramatically over a day, also the amount of devices that are now sending data to their networks and to their environments increased exponentially over 24 hours as well. And so what they see is that they're no longer confined within their well-protected and firewalled environment. And now it's not just bring your own devices, that everybody brings every device they can think of, from mobile phones to tablets to webcams and video cameras, patients taking pictures and sending it to the doctors, using any technologies from text messages to dedicated telemedicine applications. So vast amounts of data have been generated, number of endpoints increased exponentially. And it's natural for enterprises to be concerned and to be worried and frankly to be scared. And of course, I imagine people in the enterprises, admins and security managers, they've probably had some bad experiences with security and encryption where it was difficult to deploy, and they kind of could see encryption and security as an enemy, but it's not. Because with the proper digital transformation, it's really your best friend and your best and last line of defense.
Yep. And I think to add to what he said on this third bullet point, encryption isn't the end-all be-all. You have to have a comprehensive solution. But to do a solution without encryption, it leaves a massive hole. And we're here to tell you that between ourselves and the platforms that HPE runs, together we have the ability to really give a comprehensive security solution along with their other pieces. So again, don't be afraid of it. Understand it's your friend. And the two must go hand in hand as you walk down the digital transformation initiative. I understand if you don't do it right away, but when you do it, understand it gives you that last line of defense. Because right now, there isn't one. I'll end it with the fortress. The fortress has the moat, the drawbridge, the walls, the guard towers, the guards. What happens when you get inside and you get past all that? You get through the integrity checks, the access management, the audit and logging, and you'll walk right into the treasure. Well, we can encrypt the treasure for you and give you that last line of defense. So don't forget about encryption. Don't forget about Zettaset. Understand we're a great partner of HPE, and that we'd really appreciate if you come by, visit the virtual booth. We'd love to tell you more about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.